All right, a lot of people think in the South is the only place you can grow a second crop of tomatoes. And really, if you do it right, I do have a sneaking suspicion that you can grow a second crop later in the season and many, many places further north. So this is gonna be how I propagate my tomatoes, because it makes a big difference in when you wanna grow your second crop of tomatoes, how it goes down. It's free, it's easy, and you learn a lot about plants. So here are the culprits here. We've got a roadster tomato, we've got a Roma, and an ace bush, and I want to take cuttings from all of these and start them. I've done this before, and I mistimed it, and it started giving us fruits right at the frost, so we're starting earlier this year. And last year I didn't do it because I was like, I'm not worried about it, but then we had like a really late first frost and the weather was really perfect for a long time. So we just didn't know how it was gonna go down. This is a great way to have, one, an insurance policy, two, if you have a gap in your garden, you don't really know what you want to put in it, but you want to put something in, why not give this a shot? And three, it really is a good skill to have in your garden because it works for tomatoes, but you can do it for many, many other plants, especially the flowers in your garden. This one is a little bit different the way I do it, but there are a lot of ways to do it, but this is how I do it, and I do it successfully every single time. First thing we need to do is decide which cuttings we're going to take. So you can't just take anything off the plant. You want to take what's called a sucker. Okay, so for instance, this looks like it would be good, but this is not a sucker. This is a feeder stem. So what this does is this collects the sun. It will go back and it will feed the plant, feed the fruit, and it also shades it so it doesn't get too hot in the summertime. So we don't want to do that. And typically you don't want to start high up on the plant, even though it's easiest. We want to take, like I said, the sucker. So you would take something like this right here, but we want much, much bigger than that. But it's going to be growing in the crook of these two right here. I like to come all the way down here into the bottom, and I like to look and search high and low for it, and it's going to be a little bit difficult. We did do our trimming last week, and I did cut a couple off that were really good candidates, but that's okay. We're not going to be overly concerned about it because there's always something to take, and this won't really hurt the production of your plant too much. So what these do is they grow, these suckers, they grow and they basically make another stem. So you can see this was one plant. So essentially all of these are suckers, but I don't want to take these big ones because they're nice and established and they're going to give us nice bushy plants, which these are indeterminates, so that really helps. And really this works best with indeterminates because of their growth rate. But if you cut all of these off, then you're single stemming and you're really losing your production on determinants. So just be careful on what you decide to take. So here's a pretty good candidate. You see, we have this limb here that we actually cut earlier because it was touching the ground. So we'll remove the rest of that knot. But you can see we've got a sucker coming out here. And what it's really doing is it's kind of jamming up the plant a little bit. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and take, you want to leave a little bit of a nub because there's going to be some dieback, but we'll cut it and we're just going to set it to the side while we get some more, and we're just going to look around and see what we can find that's available for us. So we got quite a few here, you can see. Now the trick is you got to get them out of the sun as soon as possible because they will wilt, and the clock really does start to tick once you cut them. So we're going to cut them, and we got them cut. Now we need to trim them up and get them in, because you can just stick them in water, but they do better if you do a little bit of prep work ahead of time. I've got them laying in this tray of water so they can, accept water, stuff like that, as they need to. And truth be told, these are going to sit in the water basically for about a month. There's a lot of ways to do this. A lot of people will take them and then they will just stick the stem in water. I don't like to do that because eventually what's going to happen is you're going to have to take it and then take it out of the water and then put it in the soil And I don't really want to do that because what that does is that allows for more stress to the plant and the roots. So we want to go ahead and do this once and then basically be done with it until it's time to plant. And so we'll fill this up, and what I'm using is the same seed starter that I normally use. Seed starting mix. This is the Pro Mix. I think it's the Pro Mix RX. So the reason why I like this is because it has no nutrients in it. It has just enough to get a seed going, so there's nothing really to burn the plant, to cause it to falsely grow. Because what we got to do is we have to take this plant and we basically have to convince it to start growing. You know, you got to coddle it a little bit and say, hey, it's time to grow, pal. It's time to do its thing. So we're going to set this up so it'll do that. And this soil has been in this bag for a while, and because of the drought, it hasn't gotten very wet. So it is basically hydrophobic at this point. And so this water will help with that too, because it can slowly suck up the nutrients into it. Like I said, there's multiple ways to do this. You could just take it and stick it in a bottle of water or a jar or something like that. But the roots become very delicate, so what we'll do is we'll put this in, and then this will allow us to give it fertilizer when we need to kind of push it to grow a little bit. We can watch it and make it grow more. And there's a way to trim it, which we'll get into in just a second, that will encourage more growth and allow the plant to focus on the roots, right? Because we don't have a support system for this plant right now. So truth be told, I no longer know what any variety of these are anymore, and I don't really care. I just want some tomatoes. So we have this giant cutting, but we don't need all of this. So what we'll do, and I like to do this, I like to cut it at an angle. Doesn't really matter for tomatoes because the roots are going to come out of the stem where you see all the hairs, but anything else I cut at an angle because the roots would come out here and just gives it more surface area. And then what we'll do is we'll come up here and you see all these leaves. We need to cut those down because there is no reason for the leaves right now. What we're going to be using is basically the nutrients left over from the planting for it to form roots, and then once it forms roots it'll need leaves. So we need a few, but we don't need a lot, so we don't really want to encourage this plant to grow too many leaves. All we're going to do is simply bury this absolutely as deep as it'll go, and that's it. Now there's a couple other things you can do, but I found with tomatoes it's just not that necessary. I think what I'll do is I'll just continue to talk while I explain that to you. So there's a rooting hormone that you can purchase. So we don't need all of this, so we'll just cut that. And then we will cut this, and this, and this, and this. And you can even go as far as I like to do too, is cut the leaves in half as well. And so that will help eliminate that extra growth. But there's a rooting hormone that you can get that you can roll this in, and then it will encourage roots. This is a B vitamin. But I've just found that with tomatoes it doesn't really matter as much. You don't really need as many, as much help with them. So the other thing we'll do, I don't know if you can see right now, let's see if there's another one with it. They're starting to get the flower buds on them, if you can see here. So you can just go ahead and pull those off, because you're not going to get, the plant's going to be trying to make something that it just can't make. So we're just going to remove that and continue. And I've done this with the rooting hormone and it's worked okay, but I find that it works better without it, because you just don't need to push anything, because they want to root so bad. They just want to grow. I know some of y'all are jumpy and want to get the hell out of here, so let's go over the aftercare and then we'll go back to that so I can get you out of here if you want to. I've got these 4 right here going. I've got 2 open containers. I think what I'll do is, I haven't done this before, but I think I might take a piece of this and see what we can get I don't know, I haven't decided quite yet, but what we want to do is we want to leave it in this water and we want to leave it in the shade. It's going to get dappled shade here, or dappled sun. You can see where it's getting a little bit of sun, and we'll leave this here for a week or two maybe, and we're going to saturate the soil pretty deep. Now we're about to get some rain supposedly, so that'll help because it'll rain from the top and then it'll fill this up as well. And really you shouldn't have to do too much more to these plants, at least for the first couple weeks. Now, usually what I do is I'll use like clear plastic cups, and then you can see the roots and it's no big deal. I don't have any, I didn't want to buy any, so I'm using these, and I've done this in the past. So what I do is I look for 2 cues to tell me if the roots are successful, well, 3 cues to tell me if the roots are successful. First and foremost, the first couple days, these are going to limp a little bit, and that's okay. Just make sure they have water and they're not sitting in the direct sun. That's the key to all of this. The other thing is you're going to start to see new growth, and you're going to start to see, once the first step is it's going to perk up, then you might start to see new growth. And what you can do is you can come out here and these will be saturated, so the soil will be all around it. And if you feel a lot of resistance pulling it up, then you know the roots have set, but I would not check it for about a month. Got to get this flower bud out of here. Come on. It's so delicate. So the reason why this is great is because I use a tray like this, and then once I start propagating, I'll do other things. I'll walk around. There's going to be a lot of flowers and stuff I probably propagate this year. I'll be doing hydrangeas. I hate to say that's it. Oh, I'll probably I got some bee balm that's not doing great in one area. So I may pull up a chunk of it, plant it in a pot, stick it out here, and then grow it to plant in the fall. There's other plants out here that I can't think of at the top of my head that will be great. If you take a cutting and this tray of water is out, you can drop it in, and typically speaking, it will, 1, keep it alive, and 2, it could possibly root in there. So if you don't have time to get to it, you could throw it in the water, make sure the cut ends in, and it'll do good. So this is the seed starting station, the washing station, which is broken because it froze over the winter. I've got to fix it, but we'll be washing vegetables here, and then I'll move this dirt off, and then that spot right there becomes a propagation station. The reason why it's the propagation station is, so right now I'll leave it here because it gets more shade, and then we'll start moving it over more and more and more in the weeks, and then it gets right here. And this is a really good balance between shade and sun. So it gets more and more sun, but it gets shade until it gets more roots. Let's take a second and talk about fertilization. So once you start to see it grow, you know that it's got roots and it's got a healthy amount of roots. You don't have to fill the pot, but you definitely want it to be a little bit more. You can give it a really light feeding. You got to be very careful because there won't be a lot of roots, but it should take a couple weeks. Right around the month mark, I'll come back and I may put some Osmocote in. I may put a little bit like very diluted fish fertilizer in, or something that I use in my garden, something like that to get it going so we can keep it going in the right direction. So we'll do that, and just be very, very careful and know that those roots are not fully developed. And at this point, you know, the reason why we do this instead of starting seeds is, 1, in a month, we've got roots on a good seed size, basically the size of a starter plant, maybe a little bit smaller. And you can eliminate about 2 months of grow time from a seed. 2, we can save seeds a lot longer. They can stretch farther because that's what we want to do ultimately. And I don't have to have anything started inside. I don't need to babysit a seed. All I need to do is get roots going. The leaves and stalk are already there to support the plant. And when it's time to plant it in, you do the same thing. If you've got it set up in an area like mine where it gets dappled sun, you want to make sure that you just harden it off for maybe a day or 2 and move it closer and closer out, and just prepare that for that, I don't want to call it seedling, that cutting for planting. And a lot of times what I'll do, say we were going to put it in this bed, I would set it right in a blank spot in the bed or right next to it and let it sit there for a day, maybe 2, until I can get in, because it's still growing. It's not going to fill up those roots. Now, what you want to aim for, you have to think, tomatoes are a long growing crop. Not the longest, and especially to terms. This doesn't really work very well with indeterminates unless you get a really late frost or no frost at all. something like that. But you want to aim to get it in the ground by July. So if you think about it that way, you go through July, you set it in about July 1st, it grows, it's small enough now, so I've stated on this channel many times that about July 18th, our tomatoes will be done. They will be not producing and they will have disease. And you may think, oh, well then your tomatoes you have now will have disease, but they're so small they don't get what causes that root issue of water. We don't have that issue with it because they're so small. There's plenty of airflow. So you've got up until September to really get some good growth on it. Now, if you live somewhere that gets cool faster, you may not get the biggest yield off of them, but you should start to get some, and you just play with it. You play with the dates a little bit. Some people that are farther up north may not benefit from this, but it's worth a shot just to see what happens. You never know. And how sweet would it be to get an extra crop of tomatoes in and not have to start a seed and learn how to take cuttings across your yard. So a couple things I'm taking cuttings from this year, which I had slipped my mind, but now that I'm looking around, I'm gonna be taking some lantana. I'm gonna be doing some lavender, rosemary, and hydrangeas. Those are the main ones that I'm going to be doing because I don't want to put those around my pond. So we'll be adding those in. And then other than that, I think that's about it. I may try a blueberry just to try it. I'm not really worried about growing more blueberries, but we may try that too. So if you're doing any kind of propagations, let us know in the comments. And if you do something different, let us know. There's a lot of ways to do it. This is my method, and I do this for everything I do. Sometimes I tweak it a little bit, but basically it's the same process across the board.